or lease in the morning.
No, Brian, we don't care about your black hole right now. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Breaking Badger News. I'm your host, as always, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kid, Maximilian Darrett. It's good to be with you all again. And joining me for this particular episode are the boss, Allison Seaman, and the Doge in charge, Mr. Brian Martinez. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking around to do this with me so we can knock this one out. So, obviously, there's been a lot of stories regarding sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape in the news lately. And on the one side, I think it's a particularly good thing because, you know, you have a lot of women that are coming out trying to gather evidence, coordinate, so that they can try and put sex offenders behind bars, or at least get them the punishment that is properly deserved. We obviously have Harvey Weinstein trying to prosecute him. We got Andy Signore from Screen Junkies, and several male feminist journalists. But anyways, there's a couple of new interesting sexual assault accusations that are being levied against a couple of celebrities that I figure might, or we should talk about it, and then it might spring off into a bigger discussion about how this is going to affect greater issues moving forward. So, couple of people. One, Twiggy Ramirez, real name Jordy White, the bassist for Marilyn Manson, or the former bassist now, has been accused of rape by his former girlfriend Jessica Adams from the band Jack Off Jill.
Whoa.
Yeah. Marilyn Manson released a statement on the issue. I knew Jessica and Jordy had a romantic relationship many years ago, and I considered and still consider Jessica to be a friend. I knew nothing about these allegations until very recently and am saddened by Jessica's obvious distress. Jessica said she finally opened up now in solidarity with other women who are coming forward with stories of sexual harassment and abuse in the wake of many allegations made against film producer Harvey Weinstein. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say that the two people that we're talking about today, the accusations that are being made against them are alleged. Although I will say this, you have to be a special brand of messed up if you're going to be fired from Marilyn Manson's band. I'm just saying. And then moving on to somebody who I would imagine is probably more globally well-known. Famous astrophysicist by the name of Neil deGrasse Tyson. And Neil deGrasse has been accused by a woman named Takia Ahmet. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. Takia is a musician, healer, and teacher who studied galactic astronomy at the University of Texas in Austin. In a blog post back in October of 2014, Takia claimed she was a grad student at the same time Tyson... I really wish people would stop messaging me while I'm doing this. Claimed she was a grad student at the time Tyson was there and that he drugged and raped her. Takia said the rape happened one day when she visited his apartment like she did almost every day. Quote, "He offered me a glass of water. I accepted a liquid in a cup made out of a coconut shell. I recall coming back to consciousness briefly, then next thing I remember is seeing him in the hallway the next day. I have lived in this nightmare for 30 years and it stops today. I know this will be difficult for many of you to believe, understand, or to know. However, know that this is the truth. Those who know me well can attest to the fact that I lived with undiagnosed PTSD of at least 25 years. On top of this, she also said that Tyson told students they could pass Astronomy 101 if they gave him a blowjob. Now, there's obviously a bigger, more important discussion to be had around this particular issue. I mean, like I said, on the one hand, it's great. We have a bunch of women coming out trying to prosecute assholes, right? But on the other hand, how is this going to affect the discourse around how we should approach trying to convict people who commit these heinous crimes? And what I mean by that is, in this particular instance, just based on a cursory look at the evidence regarding Neil deGrasse Tyson's, the accusations surrounding him, it sounds very, very far-fetched. Whereas other stories that are coming out, there's obviously a lot of evidence, and those people should be convicted. But when it comes to false accusations, I think because there's a lot of people trying to ride this particular controversy right now, that's a definite possibility.
Well, I think that we should bear in mind that until there's at least a conviction, we should probably not consider that this is all cut and dried. And even if there is a conviction, the Innocence Project shows us that a lot of those convictions are erroneous as well. So I'd like to maintain at least some credulity until, or incredulity, however, one of the credulities, that until, you know, some more evidence or some conclusions come out. The other thing is that I would say that this is going to, if we don't do that, then we're starting to look at sort of extrajudicial punishment which we formerly would call like lynch mobs, et cetera, et cetera. In this case, it would be more of a social lynch mob. I noticed that there's already a lot of damage being done to these men before they're even convicted of what has occurred. And that's in the case with the convictions where they seem more plausible than this particular conviction, this new one with DeGrasse Tyson, which I regard to be just on the facts of the case. If I were to give my opinion prior to any kind of legal finding, just seems a bit fishy. Yeah,
absurd. Yeah.
Just slightly. Anyway, so I'd like to just clarify that I think we should reserve judgment until the process of law has processed and something, there's been some kind of decision or judgment made. I'd also like to add that I think that the men's rights angle comes in this is that the people on the left have created this culture of listen and believe where an accusation is a conviction. Because right now, I bet almost everyone thinks that, or at least most people think that these men actually did what they're accused of. And although in our line of work, we tend to advocate more for the guys who have no recourse and this kind of stuff happens to this everyday Joe. I would like to point out that having power, the temptation to use it against powerful men is going to be high. And in many cases, that could be, a rationale. And I think that's going to happen more and more as we become less and less willing to examine the accusations, or even not examine, just say, you know what, I don't know at this time. Until the court rules on it, I'm not going to have an opinion. I mean, that's something that people aren't doing. They're not simply saying, you know what, don't know, not going to have an opinion. I'm not going to condemn someone on an allegation alone. I'm not going to assume they're guilty because someone's leveled an allegation. And I'm just going to, innocent until proven guilty. And that would prevent a lot of the extrajudicial punishments, the social punishments, the social lynch mob. I'm sure that every one of these individuals who's facing an accusation has experienced already negative repercussions from the accusation alone, even though those negative repercussions are not based on a conviction. And that'll continue to happen as feminists and social justice warriors erode the social support for due process. So it'll just get worse and worse and worse. And that's something that I think is unsustainable over time, because it's going to erode people's faith in each other. It's going to erode their ability to work together, to cooperate. What's going to happen when a woman can just level an accusation against a man and get him fired, can totally remove his social circle? I mean, this is something that happens already, but even more so. How far do we want to take this? And what does society look like at that point? And I also want to point out that if there are this many women coming forward, guaranteed there are male victims who are not.
Now, Brian, I want to get your thoughts on this quickly, but also just going off of what Allison said, how much of a probability do you think that with a lot of people understandably using this whole Harvey Weinstein controversy to try and empower themselves to speak out about actual abuse that has happened, with regards to what Allison has been saying about the way that this sort of thing can be taken advantage of, how much of a possibility do you think that this could spiral out of control?
Well, I think it's quite possibly already out of control. I mean, I think that what we can take away from all of these accusations that have been flying around is that there are, for me anyway, there are too many of these cases that probably should have been handled when they happened. And I think that should be the thing that people take away from it. Like, if you wait too long to say something, if something really happened, then you wait until it becomes a thing to do because everyone else is doing it, then it's possible that your actual experience, like if something really happened to you, it can get drowned out by a bunch of stuff that is either not entirely related, but it's being lumped in the same way. Because I don't know if you noticed, but like when this broke, this Me Too thing, at first it was all about people who actually are experiencing rape, pedophilia, sexual assault, and that kind of thing. And then what gets lumped in there with it, because everyone wants to participate. Everyone wants to be part of the hashtag, especially women, because they're the majority of the people who came forward. Well, then they throw in things like being catcalled, some guy, you know, making a joke that's like, you know, they found to be distasteful, someone who maybe, you know what I mean? Like this stuff that's extremely petty by comparison gets thrown in, and it drowns out the stuff. And you pile that on top of the stuff that's outright false or exaggerated because people are trying to win the, the pissing contest around their experience, and then people who genuinely have a hard time coming forward and genuinely, you know, experience something terrible, well, we don't know who they are now. It's like, it's almost like a societal boy who called wolf thing, and it becomes really difficult to figure out where the real problems are at. And then the only thing you can take away from it, unfortunately, is if something bad happens to you, don't go to Twitter, go to the cops as soon as possible. And if you need to, don't just go to the cops, you know, because I know there are people who are saying, well, the police are not going to take me seriously, yada, yada. Well, first off, I don't buy that. But if you really feel that way, don't just go to the police, you know, go to a priest, go to a therapist, go to your folks, go to your family members, go to friends, go to everyone. You know, go to your university professors, go to the principal, go to whoever. Make sure that it gets out, because when you wait, even if you have a genuine reason, and I have sympathy for people who have a hard time coming forward, but if you wait, it doesn't work out well for you, and it also doesn't work out well for anybody else who may have encountered the person who did this to you. Because by not speaking out, you endanger everyone else that person comes in contact with after that. So it seems to me that the best thing to take away from this would be in the future. I hopefully this doesn't happen again in the future, but something that as a society we should reinforce is in the future, if something genuinely criminal happens to you, then you should go forward. And that was what I would say for people who are actual victims. As far as the culture around what's happened is concerned, in terms of like all of this that's coming out, it's actually made me a little bit sort of agnostic towards it, because it's so difficult to know what's true and what's not, that I don't have a really strong feeling either way, except to look at it like I wish that people had done this in a wiser fashion so that we can tell who the real victims are. And that's why I say, you know, that's what we should take away from it. Say something as soon as something happens. If you are a child, then, you know, I hope that you have a good relationship with your parents so that you could communicate with, you know, this sort of thing to them. It's like the best we can do, I think, you know, is try to like create a culture based around, you know, being able to come out, being able to connect with each other, and be able to tell the truth. To the people who are, you know, maybe exaggerating or lying or whatever, you're not helping the situation. You're actually making it a lot worse. Not just for the men that you're saying this about, but for the people who are real victims. You're making it difficult to know who is real and who is not. You're clouding the issue. So, and I've got to say that I don't have a lot of love for Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think that I'm not crazy about the guy, let's put it that way. But this is something that I have to, you know, stick to my guns and my principles and say he's innocent until proven guilty. And there is absolutely nothing that I can see in terms of evidence except for Tchia Amet Elmat, that's her full name, except for her claims. And a claim doesn't mean anything until it's been proven. So, and again, you know, Tchia, if this is something that really happened, then you should not have been waiting until it was like time for everyone else to talk before you talked. Other than that, I have to echo everything that Allison said, you know. And also, I'd like to add on top of that is a lot of the times that these things that are coming out of like Hollywood, the entertainment industry, gaming, journalism, wherever. I mean, all over the place, with this like all over. But most of it's coming from places that are pretty like favorable towards, you know, the ideologies of feminism and social justice. And this is just to remind you guys, when this happens, male feminists, you're not safe from this. In fact, you're probably more vulnerable to it, to being accused of you know, sexual misconduct, than guys like us that essentially keep our distance from that shit. So remember that just because you're on the side that is, you know, pointing and saying there's the witch, burn the witch, that doesn't mean that you could not in turn be accused of being a witch in the future.
Maybe it's like an extreme sport for them. How long can I last? How many pig lectins can I swallow?
Maybe. How far can I get before I'm accused?
Yeah.
And then when you get accused, and because you fostered this listen and believe shit, when you get accused, it's almost like you can't do anything except apologize for shit that you probably didn't even do.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely a way to run a culture, just with extreme social situations or extreme. It's like it make everything into an extreme sport. Going to lunch with a woman, extreme sport. Will you end up lynched at the end of the day? Okay.
Yeah, that would be considered an extreme sport to a lot of people. But anyways, unfortunately, because my internet sucks and I can barely hear what they're saying, I'm going to have to cut this very good discussion a little bit short. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, for this particular edition of Breaking Badger News. I want to thank my co-hosts for coming on and doing this with me, bearing with me even though my internet sucks, Brian Martinez and Allison Tiemann. If you like this particular episode, make sure to leave it a like. Hit that like button, please. It helps us out a lot. It tells the YouTube algorithm that our video is worth watching. And if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. Of course, at the end of the day, it's not what us idiots have to say that's important. It's what you guys have to say. Make sure you leave your comments down below, whether you agree or disagree. I'm just joking.
No, it's absolutely not important that you leave your comments or do anything. Just go away.
Go away. Just agree and
patron us. Patron us. Works
chamber.
with a feminist. www.patreon.com/HoneyBadgerRadio. Just agree with us and give us money.
Yes, give us all the money, particularly me, so I can fund my cosmetic surgery and keep my beautiful skin yellow. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, please have a lovely day.